there, and thank you for joining us to take a brief tour of some of the cultural ethics in the Philippines. I hope you enjoyed the preliminary picture show, give you just a glimpse of some of the sights you may find when traveling to this beautiful country. The purpose of our presentation is to deliver information about how to effectively do business and socialize in the Philippines as a foreigner. We will be covering topics to include traveling smart, doing business, and appropriate behavior in socializing. Joining me today to help cover these topics will be Lee Baldridge and Renee Carnes. I personally will be covering the Traveling Smart segment of our presentation. Lee will be covering doing business, and Renee will be covering behavior and socialization. Now, as with any country, in the Philippines, we highly encourage you to be well prepared in advance. In preparation, there are many questions to consider asking. I will bring your attention to many of the areas that should be addressed in order to be prepared and increase the likelihood of having a positive experience. Some of these areas include what background information would be good to know about the Philippines before you go, such as geography and the people. What to do before you go. Do you need a visa? Air travel info. What are some of the major cities and airports? What are some of the airlines that travel to and from the Philippines? And are there nonstop? From and to which airports? How about the hotels? How should you book and what are they like? What's the weather like? What types of transportation are there while you're there? What form of currency is used and what is the exchange rate? What are the common tipping practices used for hotels, restaurants, and taxis? And what is the national language? These are all questions that you should be thinking about and preparing for. So, let's begin from the top. What exactly is some useful background information to know before you go? With regard to the geography of the country, here are some interesting facts. The Philippines is approximately 300,000 square kilometers and is just slightly larger than the state of Arizona. It is comprised of 7,107 islands. Its climate is considered tropical marine, and its terrain is mostly mountainous with narrow to extensive coastal lowlands. More specific information about the weather will be addressed later. The Philippines is comprised of three main regions, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, as well as 80 individual provinces. And here we will take a look. Here's a small map that you may not be able to see the details of. However, you can see the basic outline and the separation of the three regions. Here we have Luzon, and then we have Visayas and Mindanao down here. And then we also have our provinces, which you can see that there's a pretty extensive list, although you're not going to be able to read each of them. And then they have kind of a similar layout to what we might see for counties in a state. So what about the people? As of July 2012, the population in the Philippines was recorded at just over 103,775,000 people. There are two official languages, Filipino based on Tagalog, in addition to 8 dialects, and then English. More on the Filipino language will be talked about when we cover common phrases later. The Philippines claimed their independence from Spain June 12, 1898, and from the U.S. on July 4, 1946. And here we have a model of the Philippine flag. Religion in the country is primarily Roman Catholic at 80.9%. So what should you do to prepare? Do you need a visa? You can enter the Philippines without a visa if your stay does not exceed 21 days, you hold valid tickets for return to port of origin or next destination, and your passport is valid for 6 months. If this is not the case, then you must obtain a visa. And this can be done through the Philippine Embassy or Consulate Office in the U.S. Air travel. Ninoy Aquino International, also known as Manila International Airport, is the primary airport serving the Philippines and the one likely to be traveled via international flights. Many commercial carriers provide international flights and can offer competitive pricing. However, only one airline, Philippine Airlines, offers a non-stop flight, which is technically a direct flight, with a stop in Guam. No change of planes. Non-stops leave only from the cities Vancouver, San Francisco, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and Honolulu. Flight arrangements are best arranged using a travel agent or major booking engine. For hotel accommodations, it is recommended that one use a booking engine as well, such as Kayak, Expedia, Hotels.com, or Travelocity. Rooms can run as little as $17 a night with a 2-star rating on up to $300 a night with a 5-star rating, depending upon your preference and budget. Some of the top cities to stay are Manila, Cebu, Boracay, Tagaytay, Davao. What's the weather like? As I mentioned earlier, the weather is marine tropical, and here we have a climate map of the different types. So you won't be able to actually see the details, but there are 4 different areas and descriptions. And those areas can range from being 2 pronounced seasons under the Type 1, dry from November to April, wet during the rest of the year. Type 2, no dry season with a very pronounced rainfall from November to January. Type 3, seasons are not very pronounced, relatively dry from November to April, and wet during the rest of the year. In Type 4, the rainfall is more or less evenly distributed throughout the year. There's so many options that you can use in getting around the Philippines. They all start at Manila. Depending on where you want to go, how quickly you want to get there, how adventurous you want to be, will determine your best form of transportation. Once you've arrived, you can take any of the following forms of transportation, and I will give a visual example of several. Airline travel. Domestic air travel in the Philippines is not only available, but it's also highly affordable and vast-reaching. Don't forget that when you are traveling by Philippines domestic airlines, to have the 100 pesos departure tax ready. It is a bit less in provincial domestic airports, where it is only 40 pesos. Philippines ferries and passenger ferries are the lifeblood for traveling in and among the Philippine Islands. With 7,107 islands to explore, it is almost impossible not to experience a trip or 2 in one of the many forms that a ferry could take. All the major cities can be reached by a Philippines ferry of some description. Philippine ferry travel can take less than an hour to more than 50 hours. Bus Transport Philippines is centered in the capital, Manila. No matter where you want to go or how you want to get there, you need to start in Manila. All transportation starts here, planes, ferries, or buses. Some buses will even transport you on ferries where required. Taxis. Taxi tips. Always remember there is an abundance of taxis. If you don't like the first one that you came across for whatever reason, don't hesitate to close the door and wait on another. You will not have to wait long. Once you've waved the taxi down and before you get into the taxi, ask the driver to turn the meter on. This is important. Always ask for the meter to be turned on. Don't be conned by the taxi driver. If the driver says no or tells you the meter does not work or pretends not to understand you, just close the door and remember tip number 1. Make sure you have small peso notes to pay for the taxi fare. 9 times out of 10, he has a change for you, but you are not to know either way. This tip is more about the taxi than anything else. The Philippines is a tropical destination with high humidity. Air conditioning is your friend. Ask the driver of any taxi to fire up the air conditioning. If it works, you will know pretty much straight away. Put your hand over the vent. If it does not, then remember tip number 1. There's also light rail transit, metro rail transit, and some very unique forms of transit. We're going to start with jeepneys. Now, one of the things that sets the Philippines apart from all other countries is one of their many forms of transport, in particular the jeepney. When visiting the Philippines, you cannot miss these colorful additions to the Philippine national transport system. They are the means of transport for anyone who wants to travel short distances. Whether you are in the cities of Manila or Cebu or in the mountain provinces, you will find a jeepney to take you where you need to go. And here we have typical shoes of some jeepneys. Bangka boats. Since the Philippines is a nation of islands, they use the traditional form of water transport, which is the bangka boat. They are sturdy and come in all shapes and sizes and colors. Some are huge and some are used to carry enormous amounts of people. While others are single-man fishing bangkas, they all serve their own purpose. Talk about. Tricycles are small motorcycles using 125 horse with a sidecar and are used as a taxi service. They are generally found in smaller cities and rural areas and are very useful. Your bag is strapped to the roof of the sidecar, and then you just jump in the sidecar and off you go. Here we have a couple tricycles. Polices are horse-drawn carriages, which were the nobility's way of traveling around the cities in the 18th century. Not anymore, though. The police is now more of a tourist attraction and form of transportation, and can still be found in the tourist areas of major cities, and some rural provincial areas still use them. And here is the police, which is basically a horse-drawn carriage. Let's talk about the currency. The peso is the currency of the Philippines. It's subdivided into 100 centavos. It is usually denoted by the symbol P with a couple double lines through it. And the exchange rate is basically 2/10 or 0.0239 US dollar to every Philippine peso. Because the model of some forms of the Philippine currency. Dollars are coins and the symbol. As far as tipping, normally the hotels and restaurants have a service charge included into the bill, and tipping is not required. If you feel the service is outstanding and still wish to tip the bellboy or waiter in the restaurants, the amount is entirely up to you. Most taxis run with a metered fare, and hence tipping is not required. Now, about the language. Tagalog is a native language of the Philippines, and is the main language of central and southern Luzon. It is also widely spoken throughout the Philippines. The Tagalog language has developed a unique vocabulary utilizing words from its own Malayan roots and also from other foreign languages, which include Spanish, Chinese, English, and other forms of languages. Filipino phrases. You do not need to master Filipino to be able to converse with basic questions. Even if you get the pronunciation completely wrong, the Filipino people will love you more because you have tried. Thank you for joining me for this portion of Cultural Ethics in the Philippines presentation. I hope by watching you have gained some useful information about how to travel a little smarter. Here now is Lee with some great pointers for doing business in the Philippines.
Hi, my name is Lee Baldridge, and I'm going to tell you a bit about business meetings in the Philippines. First, we're going to talk about dress etiquette. Business attire is very conservative. Stress is on the word conservative. It's important to not be distracting in the business meeting world. Men should wear dark-colored conservative business suits, at least for the initial meeting. Eventually, once they've had one or two meetings, they can figure out what everyone else wears and what is appropriate for that setting. Women should wear a conservative suit, a skirt and blouse combo, or a dress. Basically, something that looks professional. They're allowed to wear bright clothing as well, as long as it's not distracting to the eye. And appearances matter, and visitors should dress well. You do not want to seem like you don't care about the meeting just because of your appearance. Next, we're going to talk about the business meeting etiquette. One of the biggest stressors in the Philippines regarding business meetings is the fact that they should be scheduled. Appointments are required and should be made 3 or 4 weeks in advance. That is a lot of time if you ask me. I know that the company I work for, we schedule only a few days in advance, and even then people forget that we're supposed to meet with them. That's why it is a good idea to reconfirm a few days prior to the meeting, as situations may change and you don't want somebody to end up canceling on you. Avoid scheduling meetings the week before Easter. This is because Filipinos usually have festivities going on that time of year and are very busy and would think it was rude if you were trying to schedule during their holiday. Punctuality is expected. For the most part, Filipino colleagues will be punctual as well. It's important to show up on time when you're expected and even a few minutes beforehand. Face-to-face meetings are also preferred in the Philippines. This is because they feel that it is more serious and connects you on a deeper relationship and on a different level. Different things like telephone, fax, letters, and emails are just not the same. I know that we use GoToMeetings at my company, which allows us to share a computer screen with the different people that we're meeting with. In the Philippines, this would be unacceptable, whereas we think it's effective and helps us get our point across by not traveling. Filipinos, they want to get to know you on a different level and make sure that you go visit them, or else they'll be upset that you're not trying to connect with that relationship or that you don't care enough. Before your meeting, make sure to send an agenda and informational materials in advance so that your colleagues may prepare for the discussion. The worst thing is to show up and have people not know exactly what you're going to talk about. This can be frustrating, and in the Philippines, they want to have an agenda ready. The actual decision maker may not be present at the meeting. Also, avoid making exaggerated claims. This can make you seem insincere and dishonest. Always accept any food or drink that's offered to you. If you turn down an offer of hospitality, your colleagues may lose face. This means that they may change their mind about the decision that they were going to make regarding your business, all because they thought you were rude. It's important to remain for a period of social conversation at the end of the meeting. We're all used to our fast-paced lives, and it is important to set aside a bit to take time to build relationships. On a side note, business cards are very important. You should offer your business card first. Make sure that your business card includes your title as well. Present and receive business cards with two hands so that it is readable by the recipient. This means that you would hand it to them with your two hands so that they can read the card. Examine the card briefly when they give you theirs, and make sure that you look at it specifically before putting it away in your business card container. This shows that you actually sincerely care about what they just handed you. Some senior level executives only give business cards to people that are similar in rank to them. Next, we will cover the topic of business meals. Light refreshments are often served at business meetings. Never offend your host by declining. If you've had a big breakfast or a lunch right before you arrived, still eat something anyway so that they feel that you are not declining their meal. In restaurants as well as private homes, always follow the lead of your host and wait to be instructed where to sit, and if it's a buffet, when to start helping yourself to the food. While many Asian cultures believe that leaving a small portion of food on your plate at the end of the meal is a show of respect, Filipinos don't mind if you show your appreciation by finishing every last bite. Business meetings that are conducted over lunch or dinner are likely to be the most productive and profitable. A Filipino businessman thrives in his congenial atmosphere, and it is an excellent way to build trust and friendships. Take these chances to seal the deal and build relationships that are a key factor in the culture as well as making business succeed. Always remember to follow up with a written thank you card for being invited to the event. Lastly, we're going to talk about business negotiation in corporate culture. Like mentioned, you never know if you'll be meeting with the decision maker or not. It may take several visits to do so. Decisions are made at the very top of the company. Filipinos also make sure that the most important businessman is not there so that they can weed out the inappropriate data or different conclusions that might not be made or make sense to them. So they make sure that all this information is held true before then involving the head honcho boss. Filipinos avoid confrontation if at all possible. It's difficult for them to say no. Likewise, their yes may merely mean perhaps, and later they'll end up telling you no when it's an easier setting to say no in. At each stage of negotiation, try to get agreements in writing to avoid any miscommunication or confusion. If you raise your voice or lose your temper, you lose face. This means, again, that they may decide that you are rude and they don't want to do business with you. Filipinos do business with people more than the companies. If you change representatives during negotiations, you may have to start over. Negotiations may be relatively slow as well. Most processes take a long time because group consensus is really important in the Filipino culture. Decisions are often reached on the basis of feelings rather than facts, which is why it's important and imperative to develop a broad network of personal relationships. Another last thing in the corporate culture is to not remove your suit jacket unless the most important Filipino does. Now, you've learned some great ways to make sure that you know how to do business in the Philippines and make it more effective and productive. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Renee, and I will be discussing the do's and don'ts of proper behavior and socializing in the Philippines. First of all, how many of you would give a gift to your business colleague? What would you get them if you did? Did you know that certain gifts could be considered an insult, and even the way you wrap your gifts should be well thought out? In the Philippines, there is no time like the present to give a gift. Gifts with your company's logo on it, such as pens, USB drives, and planners, are all acceptable gifts that can be given to your business associate during your first meeting. Other business appropriate gifts could be books or items that are distinctive to your own country of origin. But what do you give after a deal goes through, or if you're invited to a colleague's house for a meal? One possible gift is flowers. However, ones to be avoided are lilies and chrysanthemums, since those are considered funeral flowers and would be highly inappropriate as a proper gift. Another option is sweets, like candies and chocolate, which can be eaten for dessert. But any other food could be misinterpreted that you think the family is poor. Remember to avoid any gift too personal or anything too extravagant. If you have been invited to a Filipino home, be sure to send a thank you card afterward, and another small gift is always a considerate gesture. When wrapping your gift, take pride in doing so. The wrapping of the gift is an indication of the amount of time and consideration you have put into your gift. The prettier and more festive it is, the better. On a last note on the subject of gift giving, remember to open your gift later, and do not be put off if your gift is not opened in front of you. This is considered a private matter. Let's face it is still very much a man's world, and women are still struggling in many countries to obtain some form of equality. However, in the Philippines, women are now given a lot of the same opportunities as men in the corporate world. Unlike women in the United States, women in the Philippines should be professional and intelligent, but not too assertive or intimidating. In regards to rules for men and women, shaking hands is acceptable when saying hello and goodbye, but it is very much frowned upon for women and men to have physical contact in public. Do not assume that as a man, you can simply shake a Filipino woman's hand. If she is willing, she will hold out her hand for you to shake. Also, a foreign woman must not pay for a bill for a Filipino businessman. This will humiliate him, and it could end up harming the professional relationship. Here in the United States, we use many ways to communicate without words. A back and forth curl of the index finger is a way to motion someone to you, or putting your hands on your hips can mean you are annoyed or just the way you're standing. Did you know both things can be misinterpreted in the Philippines? A back and forth curl of your index finger is an insult, and if used on a person, can actually get you sent to jail. And hands on your hips can signify that you're angry. Filipinos use body language as much as they use actual words. Raising eyebrows or jerking your head up can both indicate yes, while a jerk of the head down can mean no. Although Filipinos have an aversion to the word no, and that is why they are more likely to use a form of nonverbal communication to answer no. Not actually saying no is thought to avoid disputes, rejections, or confrontations. Can you guess what I am signifying? If you guessed two of something, then you were right. A pinky and ring finger instead of an index and middle finger is the proper way to signify two of something. How about Go away? Nope. This actually is the proper way to say come here, which can easily be confused with go away, which looks like this. Come here, go away. Come here, go away. Another very common nonverbal communication is a way a Filipino might point at someone or towards a direction. If you ask where someone or something is, they. This is important to remember because this is a very common practice. They are not making kissing motions, they're actually just pointing. Finally, what about eye contact? Do you or don't you? Is there such a thing as too much eye contact? Eye contact is important as long as it isn't too continuous. So remember to have eye contact, which is broken up through the conversation. But do not stare, because that can be misconstrued as confrontational. You can expect similar types of entertainment for after-work hours, such as going to the movies, concerts, clubs, casinos, and outdoor activities. The Philippines offer an event or festival in almost every month of the year. The Philippines is made up of 7,107 islands, so there is something for everyone. Adventure seekers can rock climb, kayak, scuba dive, and hike in the many mountains, rivers, and coral reefs. The weather in the Philippines is usually nice year-round, so there is always an opportunity for outdoor activities. If you're more of a sightseer, then your stay in the Philippines will be great. There are many sightseeing tours for cities, islands, museums, and so much more. No matter what you do on your time off, remember, you are a guest in this beautiful country and be respectful of the culture and people. You have now learned smart traveling tips, the business culture, and proper behavior and social tips for your new business venture. Please remember that knowing about the business culture will help you improve business relationships and can make it easier to avoid committing taboos or having unacceptable public behavior.